Thank you, Lori. Welcome back, and let's go ahead and open up the City of North Plains City Council regular session meeting Monday, February 7th, 2022 at 7 o'clock. If you can see the chat, Andy did make a comment that the meeting is being transcribed in a live fashion. So I guess that's something you can minimize or hide the transcript during the meeting if it's too disruptive. So with that, Lori, roll call, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Fage?
Here.
Councillor Kendall?
Here.
Councillor Martinez?
Here.
Councillor Papin?
Here.
Councillor Sheldon? I see him, he's muted. Councillor Smith?
Here.
And Mayor Lenahan.
Here. Thank you, Lori.
And I'm present.
Thank you, Councillor Sheldon.
All right, item number 4 on our agenda is the consent agenda. And if you'll note, we do have a couple of resolutions in the consent agenda. One is recognizing Juneteenth as the legal holiday through Resolution 2172. Resolution 2173 is appointing Chris Barron to the EDC. And then the approval of tonight's agenda, and then approval of the January 18th City Council minutes. Are there any comments or corrections to the minutes or such? Councillor Smith?
Yes, we're going to have a discussion on 2172. Is that going to be a paid holiday?
Yes, it is a paid holiday.
Are we going to give up another holiday to pay another one?
I can speak to this, Mayor. This resolution does not make it a paid holiday. This just makes it a legally recognized holiday. To make it a paid holiday, it would have to be in an amended personnel handbook, personnel policy. We're going through the process of updating that right now with the city attorney. And that's one of my goals, is to get that updated for all employees this spring. But that's not what this resolution does. If you want to have a discussion at that time.
Yes, I would like one at that time. But I'm fine with, if we want to pass it, it's a federal holiday already, I have no problem with it. But I do have a problem if we're going to pay for it.
Andy, thanks for that clarification. I misread that, so thank you for that. Any other discussions for the consent agenda? Councillor Papin?
Thank you. I just had a quick question. I attended the Economic Development Committee meeting the other night when one of the applicants was in attendance. And I was having some audio issues and I didn't catch the entire thing. And I'm hoping Bill might be able to speak a little bit more as far as the relationship that was disclosed with this applicant and the city that was spoken to during this meeting.
Councilor Papin, yes. So Chris Barron is an employee business relationship manager for the bank that we bank with as a city, our checking account. So whenever there are things that we have to do, wire transfers, all that fun stuff, he's the one we talk to first. So yeah, that's what we had mentioned a little bit about that. That's where we know him from.
I see. And then just making, I mean, I'm sure that we've dotted all of our I's and crossed our T's, but that's not a conflict of interest of any kind, correct?
That's correct. And as a matter of fact, as part of his employment and his business relationship with us, all of that information is confidential. So he doesn't discuss it.
Okay, thank you.
And while we're on that subject too, I did notice that on his application, he did not give any kind of qualifications to, on question 3, he didn't answer that, but did he answer it during the meeting by any chance?
Mayor, yes, he did. So I'm going to talk with him in the morning, just kind of about what the EDC does. And I was going to dig a little, but what it sounds like in talking and what I have communicated with him is that our form is a fillable form, and he actually has a ton of different kind of committee and chamber and other type of experience. So it wasn't something easily kind of filled out with the fillable form that we have, and it would have been really incomplete. So I think he just opted at our meeting to talk about it, all of his experience.
Okay,
But he didn't fill that out as a result, it sounds like.
okay.
But there's not a resume attached to it or anything?
No, we don't request any kind of resume when they fill out an application. They just, we always say they can use a blank page and add to it if they'd like, but I think he was more comfortable verbally giving his answers to the questions. And there is an audio of that. If any of you are interested in hearing, everything that he has been involved with and experience, I can certainly send it to you. We are having some issues getting our audio onto the city website. We are working to be ADA compliant. That's why you're not seeing the audios on there right now, but I do have them all. So if anybody would like to hear his audio from the EDC brief interview, I'd be happy to share that with you.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting the resume be required, just they left it empty. So maybe attach the resume as like the side sheet for that, number 3 instead. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll move for approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Do you have a second?
Well, second.
All right, we have a first by Councilor Martinez, seconded by Councilor Papen. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you. Item number 5 is our public comment. This is the time where we wish to allow the public to speak on anything that is not on the agenda. Lori, do you have anything in writing or see anyone on the call that would like to speak?
Did not receive anything prior to tonight's meeting. And it looks like we do have a visitor, but it is a planning commissioner, so he knows to speak up if he has any questions.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that, Lori. I appreciate that. Item number 6 is resolution 2174, and that is awarding the contract for the Cottage Street pavement water line work. So I'll turn this over to Andy for explanation.
Okay, thanks. I tried to pull it up, but my computer's acting funny here. So let me grab down and find it. Well, luckily, I kind of pieced together some good information from the city engineer for a staff report. So the details are in there. But broadly speaking, 2 projects, an overlay on Cottage Street and then upsizing the water main on that street are both due on our CIP list within the next 2 years. So when we got a small city allotment grant for the Cottage Street work to move ahead, we decided to elevate the water project so we can just take a dig once approach and do 2 projects together. So the details of the work that will take place from Glencoe West to 318th are in the staff report. The water line improvements will be bringing a 4-inch water main up to 8-inch, so that's doubling the capacity there. And that project, it's about 1,800 linear foot of main to be constructed. And then the rehabilitation is a grind and overlay and some ADA curb improvements as well that are part of the project. The estimates, the engineer's estimates and the bid totals that came in are listed on pages 13 and 14. The total project cost from Icon Construction, the lowest bidder is $618,686. And that's below the what the engineer's estimate was for the project being bid. We recommend authorizing an additional $50,000 just for contingency, because once you start digging, you don't know what you might come across. So we want to learn from past projects. So that would be a total authorization of $668,686. But just to clarify, the contract with Icon, the lowest responsive bidder, would still be that what they bid the project out at, $618,686. Additional authorization will only apply to any change orders or contingencies if needed, but let's hope not. This is more of a straightforward project than the trail project, for instance, on West Union Path. The timeline is there. Also on page 14, we get them a notice to proceed later this month. They'd start work once they have all the materials on hand later this spring, and we anticipate the entire project being completed in July this summer. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer that.
Councillor Phage and then Councillor Sheldon.
I was wondering about materials. Did the contract specify what materials each company was going to use? Are there, as far as piping goes, are there different companies or different manufacturers that can use cheaper materials? I'm trying to figure out what the delta is in the price.
Yeah, we have bid specifications, so they have to adhere to those bid specifications. So for whatever the materials call for there, that's what they have to provide. So we can't require ductile iron piping and they come in with, you know, PVC piping or something. They have to meet the bid specs.
Thank you.
Councillor Sheldon.
Well, I've got a few questions and a bit of an objection to this resolution for a number of reasons, and I'll kind of lay those out. First, in the report, this was a bid, so this was a bid, not an RFP. So I'm concerned about two things. I'm not sure what the sense of urgency is about this project at this time, and in that we have a bid in the amount of $618,686, but we don't have in our packet anything other than about a 2-sentence explanation in 3J's report in item 3 that 10 bids were received. And when I look at 10 bids and we have 6 that were responsive, okay, that means they were scored somehow, but it doesn't give us any idea of what the range from the lowest bidder to the highest bidder was. And in addition to that, I'm not sure we can award a contract, a public contract for an improvement before we negotiate with somebody. And we're insinuating that we're going to negotiate at least maybe not on the price, but that we have a $50,000 contingency. My feeling is they bid it. They're going to do it for $618,686. Unforeseens, that's their problem, not ours. That's not on us. If we issue a change order that materially changes the scope of the project, then that's a different matter. But when they have everything in front of them and they're bidding $618,686, we should hold them to it. And I have issues with even the transparency of, okay, well, a $50,000, what are we possibly anticipating for that gross of a change, which is almost 10%. And, you know, it just kind of stinks to me that we would send it out and we receive a bid. And I trust that the city engineer understands what he evaluated. But I'm curious as to, okay, out of those 10 bids, what is the range? Why don't we see that bid tab with this resolution? And, you know, I have questions again to get back to, you know, the public contracting side. Even though it's an improvement, you can negotiate. Typically, that's only when the contract is in excess of what was anticipated. And it's well within and under the amount the city engineer estimated. So I need to understand those things before I can support this.
Andy,
Minnie, I have, okay. These are good questions, and maybe I should have, I did you a disservice of not providing all of the information that I thought you would require. I've done that in the past, and sometimes the packets are too large. We obviously have all that information. I can't get Adobe to work right now. That's why I was viewing my staff report earlier on a different laptop. I'm happy to pull up the bid tabulation memo that was very detailed that we got from 3J. John, if you're on there, maybe you can, but it shows all of the bid tabulations from all 10 bidders, every single item that they bid in each schedule. There are 2 schedules of the project. So that is there. As far as the authorization, like I said, the 618, what they bid, that's what the contract is with for the contractor. That's what we plan for them to do the project with, because that's what they bid it for. The extra authorization, even if it goes, they have a change order for $2,500 because of public contracting rules. I'd have to come back to you for additional authorization with a resolution just to spend that extra $2,500. So authorizing more than that, an extra $50,000, which, you know, God forbid we don't have to use, that's just a buffer. That gives us some cushion that, okay, you know, they're going through the project, and we require some additional scope. We know we have that in there. If they find something goes, you know, if you did this, or an engineer goes, let's just make this one change, that'll make the project that much better for everyone, but it's $30,000. Okay, we have a contingency. We can go ahead and do that. We're just trying to avoid having to come back to you guys once or twice or 3 times. So providing in some extra cushion right now. We're obviously going to be very mindful of what the contract amount is, and John's been very good at that. So I hope that helped answer your question. That's more about not having to come back to you with multiple resolutions for additional approvals, but our intent is to stick to the amount that they bid for. John, do you happen to have that bid summary there that Brian, do you? Yeah, go ahead, and you have screen share, so go ahead and throw that up.
Okay,
Yeah.
1 second.
And I can include these things in future packets, but I do, you know, I want folks to know that we do our homework, and we do
Is this the one you wanted to see?
score these. Yeah. And he actually
Okay.
had a few more pages associated with that.
Oh yeah, this is the entire packet. So you tell me where you want to start.
Well, yeah, so we start with a bid form list. These are all the bids that come in, and you'll see the Ys and the check marks. Are they meeting the different specifications of the project? And if someone's not, we consider them unresponsive. Then they have to cure that. You know, are they qualified to perform the work? So if you go down, we had 10 bids. 6 of those in Brian's memo note that 6 of them were considered responsive, or they're qualified to do the project. So that's really where the baseline is. You're taking those 6 because we feel that they're the most qualified for the project. So if you go down, that's taking apart the different totals from the various bids on the next page. So you know, Councilor Shuttle, I apologize. I'm happy to provide this info in when we do, you know, future projects, because we will have more. We're going to have more capital projects this year and next, and we can do that. I could also just have it on standby for things like this as supplemental information if people have questions, but this is the information that all goes out to the bidders as well.
Okay, I can't see any of the numbers. So what's the highest bidder?
You want to look at this overall
Let's
numbers?
just look at the numbers.
Yeah,
where
let's
they-
look at numbers. Just 1 second here. I think this is probably the best. Would you agree, Andy?
Yeah, Kodiak Pacific. Yeah, so there they are listed in order. From
The trench
Topics.
line is the highest. Oh, no. Well, that was one of the 6 that was responsive. Kodiak was not responsive, correct?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and that means that, you know, they may be missing a qualification. They don't turn in a subcontractor form. But if they miscalculate something in their totals, and we go back and review what they bid and say, actually, you messed this up on this total, there could be some discrepancy. That doesn't mean they're not qualified or not responsive. It just means that they miscalculated something in their bid.
Yeah,
Counselor Stage, go ahead. I know. Feel free to jump in. It's okay.
thank you. I'll go ahead and jump in then. So Andy, I'm also with Russ by saying that I like to see these things. However, that being said, I don't want to get lost in the committee talking about bids that I'm not qualified to talk about. We hired 3J, and I appreciate you give us the Cliff Notes version of it, because I'm not qualified to know if somebody's filled out the first tier subcontractor form or not. So it's good that you're doing this. But I would like to have the overview of knowing the numbers, just like Cliff Notes version, right? Not something that we could go into the nuts and bolts and talk about stuff that I'm not qualified to talk about. But just, the heads up, we'll be good. But yeah, thanks. We hired 3J, and I'm relying upon their expertise. So, thanks.
Yeah, and I went back and forth on how much I wanted to provide, but I'll err on the side of sometimes, more is better. So that's a lesson learned.
Well, at least in my case, I think any bids that we're gonna approve in a resolution, at least the bid tab needs to be in there, and the methodology for how we eliminated or included a bidder as a responsive bidder, because a lot of people in city government believe that, or in any public contracting, that the lowest bid is the bid that is required to accept, and that's just not true. It's the most responsive bid. That's not always going to equate to being the least dollar cost. It's who is responsive, who is, checking the boxes, who is going to perform the work. What assurance do we have? What is their qualification? How assured are we that for $618,686, if we don't cut a single change order, that's exactly what he bid. That's exactly what he should, in good faith, perform that contract for, without exception. And I'm sure there's bid security or something of that nature, and there's probably progress payments like there is in a lot of construction. But I worry about not so much the minutia, but it's just the air of, okay, why is this so urgent that it's got to be done now? I understand the efficiencies in digging the ground once. Those things make sense to me, but it just on its face doesn't look that good. And when I look at the contract that starts in basically in earnest on page 17, I look at a provision in that contract, which, I guess I would have to say that under our article, I think it's Article 3. I think it's Article 3. It's Article 4, actually. It talks about a contract timeline. We don't see anything about a timeline in here. It refers to it as a provision, a special provision. That might be part of the bid documents, but I think those are some of the things that, I'm interested in seeing when I'm going to vote on a resolution.
Well, I appreciate that. Again, I just tried to streamline this information for you and give a timeline because if we included all of the bid specifications, it's, I don't know, John, how many pages was that?
I'm not
Yeah.
in that. I'm interested in, how we arrived at who was the most responsive, what the range of the numbers were, because in a lot of cases you throw out the low one and you throw out the high one, and you take and you look at the rest of them with a microscope, eliminate the ones who are missing, basically very important information, and then you kind of go from there. And I just, I wasn't sure that was the case in this process. It seems hurried to me.
And I would also question about picking the lowest bidder. Like I agree with a lot of what Councilor Sheldon is saying, and trying to understand why is it the lowest one that we chose, knowing that the engineer's estimate is higher. And then my other question would be, maybe for efficiency's sake, not bringing back a resolution, to maybe have to increase a price by 10,000 or 15,000 it's cumbersome for staff, but there's still public funds. And I would like to know if something is causing this project to go over bid and for what reason. So I'm just kind of curious, like, how did you pick 50,000 for a contingency fund? You might not have an answer for that tonight, Andy, and that's totally fine, but I think that there are some missing pieces to this that would help me as well to better understand how you arrived at these numbers.
Well, I'm going to defer to the engineer on that. That was his recommendation, but I think it's probably based on past experience. And I will get to sort of the expediency question. Why are we doing this now? One of the reasons is in the fuel tax, part of this Cottage Street work is Small Cities Allotment Grant. It's also coming from the fuel tax bond. And that was the next project on that bond to be started in 2022. So we're trying to stick to that schedule because that's what we said to the voters. We're trying to stick to the schedule and get projects moving so they can see results. Well, if we're going to do that and we're going to rip up that road and we're due to upsize that water line in 2023, it just made sense to us to combine the two projects. So that's the expediency portion of that. So I hope that helps. And I couldn't agree more that these are public funds. We want to be good stewards with them, but we also know that stuff happens when you start digging around under a road, and you can come across some things that you're not anticipating, even though you're doing locates. And we just did the pavement management program and got some good radar data from along that road. It's good stuff. So we have a pretty good idea of what's there. But these are, every project should have a contingency, and we're just trying to be, like you said, Mayor, efficient with time and not trying to come back if we even need an extra $5,000 or something like that. So $50,000, we're hoping that's high. We're hoping we don't even have to touch it. One of the last projects we did, like I mentioned back in the STC program, the water line upsizing project, that's one that actually came in under budget. So these things do happen. And so that's always going to be our goal.
So I'm going to try to phrase this question in a way that is it possible that this construction company says, okay, we're going to bid it at 618, but they're listening, and let's say the council approves a 50,000 contingency. Now in the back of their mind, they're like, oh, wow, the city could really afford it, $50,000 more. Maybe we ought to stretch this project out a little bit, or maybe let's try to, maybe they're not saying that Icon is bad or that they would do something like that. But what if a company did that? Like, oh, I'll bid it at 600,000. Council gives a contingency. They see that there's some wiggle room to get some more money out of the city. I mean, how do you vet that? Does that make sense?
Mhm. May I take that one?
Sure.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. John Elworth with 3J. So asking for a contingency is not completely out of the norm. It's about a 7.5% contingency rounded to the nearest thousand. So it's a nice clean 50,000. But the contractor has to prove that they need that additional funds. It's not just carte blanche. Hey, we'll hand it over to you if you guys ask for it. It will go to the engineer for review of the change order request, and we will analyze that and scrutinize it for all the reasons that they come up with, and they have to have backup for it. There's a lot of words in the contract that protect us and show we've got to be within 30 days of doing the work, have to notify us properly, and then we have to sign off on it and agree to it. And if we don't believe that it warrants an increase, then we have a discussion about it. We don't just sign off on change order requests at all. And that's typical, and contractors know that, so they're not going to play the games of trying to just do frivolous change order requests. They got a reputation to uphold. So does that answer the question? I mean, we're not going to just.
Yeah, it does. But I mean, I'm looking at the engineer's estimate, you know, of $640,000, and of course we chose, you know, someone that wants to do it for cheaper, you know, 618. So there seems to be some wiggle room, regardless of. Now, I granted it's an estimate, but there still seems to be some wiggle room there.
Right. Yeah. The estimate, an engineer's estimate is just that. It's an estimate based on the best available information. The contractors will then go and bid it. We didn't get the first 4 or 5 estimates there, then their numbers would be higher than ours, and we'd be wondering why your estimate got missed. But if you take out the low and you take out the high, and the numbers are pretty close, relatively speaking, in the middle, which indicates fairly decent set of plans in general, that the individual contractors each had a good information to review, and they bid it all just about the same numbers. There is some range there, but the range is, I think, if I remember the analysis and looking at it, within $50,000 of that engineer's estimate. So they do vary at times, and I think this one came in pretty good. Subcom looks like they had missed some things, and they pulled their contract, pulled the bid because of that, and then it went to the second lowest. Sorry.
Is there a policy that cities have to award the lowest bidder?
Lowest responsive bidder.
Lowest qualified, it pretty much is.
Yeah. Lowest qualified and the responsive bidder. Yes.
Okay.
There are other methods of getting to contractors with qualifications, and then we bid just with them. However, projects like this, obviously you can see that 10 individual contractors bid this project, and that's a big number of folks, and it's a good number of folks to get numbers from. So I think I'm pretty confident with this.
Yeah. It wasn't that long ago, we were getting 1 or 2 companies to bid on projects. So it's great to have more to choose from.
It certainly is.
And and sometimes the market figures out, well, we are way off on our bid. If they're that low, and they Subcom just pulled their bid, it could just be, wow, we are way off on something, and our weren't hitting their profit targets or something. But then you go in and bet the next one, Icon. Are they qualified? Have they been doing projects in the region? And they have. So we feel good about moving forward with them.
Councilor Sheldon, I trust your eye on this as well, only because I know that you have expertise and some experience with bidding and projects and things like that. What would it take for you to feel comfortable with moving forward with this resolution?
Well, based on what was provided, I can move forward. My initial plan was to object to it if I didn't get the right answers. And, I think I think the diligence that's done by 3J, I certainly trust that. And I expect that we hold their feet to the fire, and I expect that that they do it for the amount they bid it for. I'm always concerned in a bid situation, are we taking not necessarily favoritism, but are we taking the opportunity away from someone who also bid the contract, who might have been very close and very qualified, that, you know, that it's an opportunity potentially from them that they're not going to get back. But
No, that makes sense. I appreciate your, you know, your directness on that one. Any other counselors have any questions or comments?
Question?
Counselor Kendall?
Yeah, John, have you had any experience with the Icon? Or what is your experience with their
sorry.
work?
Yeah, me personally, I have not had a experience with them directly. Brian Feeney, I believe, engineer, project manager on the project, has some history there.
Are they local? Are they local company, please?
Yeah, they're local within the metro area. I believe Westland, I think, is their hometown. I can't remember exactly where they're headquartered, but they do work down in the area quite a bit. So they've been around. I know their name. They've done a lot of commercial type work as well. So breaking into some of the public works, but they've been doing that work.
Okay, thank you.
John, does 3J also look at the bids with an equity lens? Is that a policy for 3J?
I don't know if that, I mean, it's a good question to ask. I'm not sure that we would be able to go and look at it in the lens unless it was within the contract itself and required that.
I didn't know if maybe it was I didn't know if it was part of the vetting process.
No, I don't believe it is in the current city bid documents requirements, right, Andy? I don't think we have that.
No, but you know, the mayor raises a point that it might have been Mayor Lennon had asked us before, do we have to go with lowest bidder? And if this is state law, this is ORS. And if you remember, Mayor, there's something I think maybe Hillsborough, maybe some others are pushing called, John, is it QBS? Qualified
qualifications-based selection.
Based selection, where you actually have more discretion. You're not forced into going with the lowest bidder. Now, you can find some reasons maybe that you find someone to be unresponsive or non-qualified with their lowest bidder, but you better have good reasons to back that up. But I think many public agencies have felt sort of backed in to their bidding process sometimes, where they've had to award the lowest bid to someone that, the next highest bid could be a delta of $5,000. Like, wow, these guys do great work. They're a women-led company. They, any number of reasons, but you're kind of boxed in unless you give a really good response for them being unqualified or unresponsive. So that's where you start getting into those things, is qualified bid selection. But right now, the state statute it does kind of tie agencies' hands to going towards that lowest bidder.
Okay. Thank you. So any other comments or questions from counselors? Counselor Sheldon.
only final question is, and you may have already alluded to this, is what is the timeline that's going to be, I'm assuming obviously you'll award it if we approve it. You'll send the notice of award, and if there's no protest in 7 days, you should be able to move forward. So the timeline, you mentioned something about June. What is the actual timeline?
Yeah, you're right. The notice of award would go out later this week, and then the notice to proceed a week after that. So they'd get going then. The anticipated completion is in July this summer.
By July, by the end of the July, before July 1?
Oof. I just had the date only. I didn't know the days of.
That's fine. That's close enough.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
Okay. Any final questions or comments? What's the wish of council?
I'll move to approve resolution number 2174. Resolution of the City of North Plains City Council awarding the Cottage Street pavement rehabilitation and water line replacement project Icon Construction, and authorize the city manager to execute the agreement on behalf of the city.
Well, second.
All right, we have a motion on the table by Counselor Sheldon, seconded by Counselor Phage. Any further discussion? John, I just really appreciate, and Andy, your feedback and diving into this a little bit with the council. It's helpful. Thank you. Any other comments or? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. All right, next on our agenda is 7A, Independence Day 2022 discussion. Andy, take it away.
Okay, well, I hope John's still on here because I was going to have him. No, I'm kidding. John, you don't have to stick around for this. Fireworks suggestions. We had been contacted a month or so ago by one of the fireworks company, basically the only one that operates in Oregon, if we're going to do a show again. And I think we've discussed this before the council and with Pumpkin Ridge. I think most folks want to do it. So I provided some details or basically the latest information that I have from them in that staff report. And what the current estimate is based on a show similar to last year. It cost about $15,000. Last year's show was a little under $13,000, and that's what the city had budgeted for the show currently. If the city decided to do the show on July 3rd, which is a Sunday, instead of a Monday, they would knock off a couple $1,000s. She didn't know initially, but she said it'd probably be at least $2,000. Most cities around the area are going to pick back up their fireworks shows again, according to Heather at Western Display Fireworks. Pumpkin Ridge is all in for hosting again, and I had a sort of an after action meeting with their general manager last year about things that went well and what we can improve upon. So we have that list, and we've had similar discussions with NEPA in regards to that too, from parking to signage and all those things to work on. So we would get those things in action this spring. So really the goal for tonight is decide if we want to host a show, when we want to do it, where we want to do it, or I should say you, balls in your court. If you want to do it, where you want to do it, when you stick to Independence Day or the day before, all those variables.
Councilor Phage.
Thank you. Let me put my phone over here. I like the idea of having a 4th of July weekend and ending it with a fireworks display. Maybe, not necessarily on the 4th, but the 4th-ish, having the weekend for the city to do stuff. But my concern was, I was at the school last year to watch it, and a lot of people were there. The fireworks weren't very high in the air. They're more of a horizon thing. It wasn't, you didn't have to look up, you had to look straight out to see them. I really don't want to supplement a great show for the golf course. I mean, I'm sure they had a great view of it if they're there, because it's probably overhead. But for the city, do they have fireworks that go higher in the air? Because those are very low, and they weren't very high at all. So I love the idea of a fireworks display. I like the idea of having it over the weekend and having it end on the Sunday night. But I'm not a big fan of having the fireworks that are so low in the air where the city cannot really see them. And seem to benefit folks at Pumpkin Ridge greatly. And I'm not really interested in subsidizing a great Pumpkin Ridge display.
Well, there were tons of people up at Pumpkin Ridge, and a lot of people along Pumpkin Ridge parking there, and then there was parking in the a farmer's field as well. So and I heard that they could see them pretty much anywhere. I don't know if Andy, would you know if fireworks a display could be higher than what we could potentially be buying?
Yeah, the reason we came around to doing it at Pumpkin Ridge is one, they were willing, but we're running out of places to host a fireworks show. And the higher you want to go, the more area you need and the more fire danger there is. And when you get into July, temperatures of 90, 100 degrees, people are a little nervous about the fire danger. So doing something on a golf course, which is manicured, tight, and irrigated, is you basically can't find a better spot where a fire department's gonna, the state fire marshal sign off on a fire show. If you want to go higher, can they go higher? Yes, but we're talking about, instead of 4-inch cans, we're probably talking 6-inch cans.
Yeah.
We would definitely need some sponsors then. We would definitely have to have that discussion with the golf course too about, all right, last show, the fallout area fit really well in this fairway. You want to go bigger, we got to find a bigger fallout zone. So they would be the ones to determine where the best place to do that is. But if you want to go higher, you're basically doubling the can size, which probably doubles the price and doubles the fallout zone.
Yeah, so that's what I want to look at, because it was very low. I mean, I'm sure the people at Pumpkin Ridge had a great time. It's probably great over there. And I'm not begrudging Pumpkin Ridge. I'm glad they're there and glad we could support it there, everything else. But I'm trying to see whether we could get something that's higher in the air so the rest of the city can see it. Because I was at the school, a bunch of people like light up at the school, and it was a horizon thing. It wasn't in the air.
Comments, counselors?
I think I kind of agree with Counselor Phage. It's great that, Pumpkin Ridge offered to host it, and I know we're kind of running out of space and ideas, but it would be nice to even get back a little bit to the one year when we did a awesome I-Thought celebration. It was kind of throughout the day on 4th of July on Commercial Street, where people could just walk from their home. And, now we have the path connecting the east to the west side, and just, having more people be able to gather than drive over to Pumpkin Ridge. Just made it kind of nice for our community. But I'd be more for having, if we're going to go with fireworks, doing it on actual 4th of July myself.
I also agree with Counselor Martinez. I feel like it's the 4th of July. I think that sometimes we try to find the value in saving a couple $1,000s, but it's also the 4th of July. And I know there's a lot of legwork, and it might be too late to do or to put together something downtown, like a car show and parade and all that this year. But I think long-term, especially as the city grows and we're getting more connected with the pedestrian path, I think that would kind of get us back to our roots. I think just the pandemic, we've kind of gotten away from the community events because we haven't been able to. And I'd love to see that kind of reinvented. I will say, Counselor Phage, I did not go to Pumpkin Ridge last year because I had a birthday party I was hosting in my backyard, but we were able to see the fireworks. Granted, it wasn't the best view, but we were still able to see them out here on the east side. So it's hard. And I guess the only other question I would have is, do we have any other plan B or plan C of a location in the city, fire danger or not? Is there anything else on the radar, Andy?
When you say in the city, no, I can't imagine anywhere. That's why we were doing it up at the Lakeview Farms. Outside of the city, maybe, but
Recology, and again, I don't know. I'm trying to think like outside the box, like Recology.
They were shot out there years before my time. How was that experience? And you're near the highway, so I don't know exactly.
That was the first year that we had them that I recall. And, people were even stopping along 26. In Glencoe, we actually, from where I live, we actually had to walk up to Glencoe and sat, where did we sit? Just a little south of the Hitchin Post to be able to see them. And so people were lined like, McDonald's and Chevron and in that area to be able to see them from Recology.
And I was also thinking, if Recology was an option, there's also at Fallady Ridge now, there's a lot more space for people to congregate if we were able to do it at Recology.
That would have to, I guess we would have to have TVFNR and Western Display kind of investigate, look at the sites and look at the fall zones and all of that sort of thing. And it is pretty hot and pretty dry. I can't imagine, I don't know what the fields would be like, they'd have to take all that into consideration. Councilor Kindle.
Yeah, listening to comment, it's I don't know, something that fun can be a dilemma, but it is. So, but anyway, up at Pumpkin Ridge, if we do it that same night, well, we're not the only one doing it. So, the small town, I don't know how many people actually look at it. If you took a poll, do 1 out of 10 look at it, or, so Pumpkin Ridge is really nice because it's convenient and close, and I would kind of lean towards that way a little bit again, but I think we could investigate the others also. But it's a pretty good location, and that's a great business that's north of us that I think we should be joining hands with off and on.
And, I'm obviously I couldn't speak for Lennar and Bryn Hill, but those roads are paved. And, there's people that drive through that community when the workers are not there and when they are there. So, there's also parking and, places there to park, to be able to view it, to view.
Yeah, in addition, Mayor, this year will be great because there will be no houses hardly there, or not
Right.
very many. So that's the advantage we'll have, and then that's all going to go away as far as view.
True. So can we agree on the day? Sunday or Monday?
I vote for 4th of July.
4th of July?
I also vote for 4th of July.
I'm fine with 4th of July, but I'd like to have some stuff done throughout the week, on a Saturday and maybe a Sunday. A car show or ice cream giveaway or something, hot dogs, I don't know.
Councilor Smith, Councilor Sheldon, Kendall, do you have a preference?
I have no preference.
Councilor Sheldon?
My preference would be July 4th. I'm typically not here. I'm typically at the coast. So I have seen a number of shows, a number of the early ones that were actually carried out on Recology. I know that there were reservations on the behalf of Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue in terms of having some spot fires over at the Recology site. It is close to Highway 26. I don't think there's any spot where you're going to get everybody in North Plains to see them. I guess the goal really should be for the citizens of North Plains. If they're folks from out of town who want to travel to see it, great. But in my mind, the most logical spot is clearly Pumpkin Ridge. And with all due respect to James, basically folks may have to get closer. So they may just have to go over to Pumpkin Ridge and enjoy the fireworks over there if they really are that interested in being that close and having the display above their heads. I think that makes sense. I think it's, we're gonna beat it to death otherwise. And, if there's other activities that happen occasionally, I mean, I know that the 4th of July, typically the Knights have wanted to have a parade. I'm assuming they want to this year again. And, other than that, it takes bodies to organize things. And I know that the NPEA helped last year organize around the golf course. And I think it probably made sense, and maybe we should try to get more people down there. But my preference is 4th of July. My preference is, so what, it's a couple grand, that's nothing. I mean, that's for us, for our people. And, I think they accommodated pretty well out there.
And I think too, that there are a lot more cities this year that will be dialed in to having their own 4th of July fireworks. So although we might attract folks from out of town, especially on the western side of town of Washington County, Hillsborough, I mean, so many other cities will be having 4th of July fireworks. So there's that too. So I think I would lean towards the 4th of July as well. It sounds like that is the consensus on the date. I think the partnership that we had with Pumpkin Ridge was really great. And then again, we're not going to be able to please everybody, but if they're willing to be able to provide us with a space to be able to have the event for our community, then I think we should, jump on it. But if Andy and Western and TVFNR can find if we can find another location in or around town that could accommodate our needs, yay for us. But I know that even last year and the year before that, we really kind of exhausted a lot of spots with the various landowners, outside of the city limits, the UGB, and just couldn't come up with anything. I don't know if that's really going to change this year. It's possible, but I think I don't want to belabor it, but I think we should just move forward and have Pumpkin Ridge, work with them and partner with them again. That would be my 2 cents on that. So
I think Pumpkin Ridge is fine. Bigger fireworks.
Andy, are you on the verge of saying something?
I was trying to figure out, I couldn't understand what Councilor Phage said. My internet's been a little spotty tonight.
I was saying that I like Pumpkin Ridge as well, but bigger fireworks.
Bigger fireworks. Yeah, I can talk to Western Display about that in Pumpkin Ridge. And let me think about one other spot around town. So I'll do that. But what I can do for now, though, is tell the fireworks company, yeah, we're interested. We may be also interested in going bigger if folks want to be able to see it from, say, North Avenue. I mean, the further out you get, the bigger you need. So North Avenue is one thing, but if someone's wanting to see it from, say, Recology, if someone's working the night shift, you're getting farther and farther away. Or Sunset Ridge. I mean, those are pretty good distances. So we're going to be limited no matter what. But I'll have her give us an estimate on some sort of different sizes, because that'll mean, another how many feet higher they'll go. And I'll look into 1 or 2 more spots around town and talk to TVFNR about their willingness to stomach that too.
Well, it sounds like we are definitely a go for July 4th, and you can just report back to us. And there's no.
Yeah, I will.
We don't need a motion.
I will probably even pull you into a discussion at some point.
Okay, well, that's fine. All right. We're down to city manager report.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. Well, again, so we do have March 7th on the calendar for a retreat. We can hold it at Pumpkin Ridge. That is a go. So we could have dinner there. They could provide that and provide the room and the space for us. And I think the facilitator sometime later this month, we'll be getting hold of each counselor to sort of have a pre-meeting discussion similar to what we did in 2019, just to see sort of the issues that are on your mind. They'll be structured phone calls, so they're not going to take up everyone's time. You know, she'll have a goal in mind just to see how see what's on folks' mind ahead of there, and what the goals and the expectations will be coming out of there, and how we want to use that information to proceed sort of a work plan for the next 12 to 24 months moving ahead. Currently, the mayor's State of the City is scheduled for March 30th. If she wants to speak to that later, she can, but anyway, that's another save the date. The reservoir is operational. Things are going well right now. We're working out the kinks on some of the supervisory controls. Soon we'll be able to really monitor and control things remotely. And so that takes some kinks to work out from a communication standpoint from the different areas in town, but we'd love to schedule a tour for counselors sometime this spring. We did post for a planning manager on Friday. So that will be, that position will be open and advertised for the next few weeks. And let's see. Yeah, the fuel tax, we'll get into this maybe with Bill's report next year. We came in lower than the projections. And so that's another one of the reasons why, revisiting that tough amount can help backfill some of the fuel tax revenue if we don't hit those targets. I feel pretty good that I would say that the pandemic still has a big impact on the economy. I think we can all recognize that, and that's going to have an impact on what people drive. And until we get back a little more to normal, I think it's going to be tough for us to project, but that was definitely the biggest issue. But the numbers are still unaudited. I'm going to check with ODOT next month when they have all of their year-end calculations to make sure their numbers match with ours. Because if not, there's a reporting error, but I'm not gonna, so I won't have anything definitive until March on that. The good thing with the first project that we had from the fuel tax bond was the West Union Ped Path, and we got a state grant to help with some of that funding. So from a bond payment perspective, we're in fine shape because we had some grant money to help fulfill that. And so speaking of projects, in April, I'm going to have 3J and I will give a presentation to the capital improvement program progress, kind of from the different master plans, from the fuel tax bond, from the CIP, all of those things in April, because some things will be, there's will be some projects underway over these next 18 months. And we want everyone to be kind of up to speed on what's going on there. Last thing I'll mention is next week, we'll have a sort of a benchmark with the GOA property with Rimbold as part of our negotiating agreement. And so we're having them put some information in a letter for the URA about where things stand with doing their due diligence, where the site plan development is, their letters of intent with vendors and retailers, all those things. We'll have them put those into a letter and then share with the URA by the middle of the month, which is when that benchmark is. So you guys know where progress stands there. And then Bill and I have a Zoom call with them next week anyway to kind of go over the progress they've made. So that'll be part of their midpoint check-in. Other than that, just a reminder that, sorry, there's another work session this week on Wednesday to go over some of the development code changes with the Planning Commission, a lot of the work they've been doing. And I see Mr. Smith has a hand raised.
Correct. I've got two. One of them is on the $2 million water tank that is there a set for a tour on that yet, or?
No, I would like to get through the test period first. There's a 30-day testing period to really work out the kinks and adjust some of the controls and things like that. So it'd be nice to get through with that, and then contractors are out of the way. And then it can just be city staff and maybe one of the engineers to do that. So I probably in March, but I don't know if everyone can do it, great. If we have to do a couple at a time, we can certainly do that, because I know not everyone's schedule is going to work. So maybe let me know what works for you, Councilor Smith, and at the very least, we can get you a tour. And if a few people want to go together, we can certainly make that happen.
Okay, now Sunset Ridge Phase 2 is, as far as I know, is finished. Is that all tied up now with like the parks and stuff, and the money situation figured out and what's due to them or due to us?
Their bonds are released. Yeah, they've satisfied the public improvement portion. The park does not transfer jurisdiction technically over to the city until August 25th, 2004. I know it's August 2004 because there's a 5-year period on that per the development agreement. So really, it's still going to be the responsibility of Taylor Morrison, the HOA, to take care of that until 2004.
And then the last thing is on revitalization of the commercial street.
Mhm.
I've noticed that there's one business there that's collecting 1,000 cars, not that many, but seems like it. And it's starting to look pretty bad. Is there some regulations that we need to look at on that
So
one?
I've been
or-
looking at them. That's not part of my revitalization plan. I will tell you that. So I've been looking at that, and the city attorney and I have we sent one letter to them around the holidays, and he's working on the next letter that kind of escalates things to the next step for that piece of property. And
Yeah, I could see that being a problem.
They leased it, so it would have to include the business and the property owner.
Counselor Sheldon.
And that was going to be my next question, is that needs to go to the landowner.
Yep.
It also the tenant, but that your strike has to be with the landowner. He really is the one that should be controlling that.
Yeah, and the first letter a month ago went to both of them. We said we give them 30 days to see if things have changed for the better, and nothing has. So the landowner, that landowner owns multiple pieces of property in town too. So that's the next step, is a more strongly worded with repercussions approach now. The first time you usually give them a warning, try to get things cleaned up, and when that doesn't happen, then you progress to, these are the portions of the code you're violating, and these are the consequences for it.
Any other comments or questions for Andy on his report? Counselor Sheldon.
Okay, it's not on the report. And I do appreciate getting a communication from you during the week that you send out to us. And what I might suggest is something we do in business, which is called a 515. And a 515 basically is team leaders and managers on Friday basically spend 15 minutes creating a summary of what took place in the week. It'd be nice to have something like that, a 515 every Friday from you. I know that it would take a little bit of extra time. I don't know how you feel about it, but I do appreciate the communication, because reading the reports, that's not a problem, and we do meet twice a month, but weekly getting a basic 515 would be nice to have on a regular basis.
Yeah, absolutely. Just let me know what form would work for you. If it's kind of sort of a summary email, if it's
just a summary email and basically bullet points, and something that doesn't take you any more than 15 minutes to put together, things that you think we might want to know or interested in knowing or should know, other than any other form of, it's a really non-official way to just basically give a briefing to folks about what's going on, what the weeks look like. Or maybe if you don't have enough that you accomplished that week, you want to say, well, here's some things that we're going to attack next week or we're looking at, something like that. Keep it brief, keep it bulleted. Nothing overly official.
Quick.
Okay,
flat
yeah,
stuff.
I can do that.
Mhm.
Some city managers have phone calls with their counselors ahead of every meeting. And I think I tried to institute that a couple of years ago, and it worked with a couple people, but nobody else's schedules lined up. So I've struggled to really figure, how do you communicate with folks? But yeah, I'm happy to do that, whether that's every week or it's every 2 weeks, but I could probably do something every Friday. There's enough stuff going on from any department that I could pull out some bullets on.
That's kind of what I was thinking, just a 5:15, that's done weekly. In business, it's a pretty common practice and team leads and managers, and it basically apprises everybody of, kind of the hits and misses and things to be aware of, where you don't take a time where you're meeting in an hour or having different meetings. You just kind of uncomplicate it and make it an informal summary.
Okay. Got it.
Anything else? Counselor Papen.
Thank you.
Mhm.
This also is not on Andy's report, but I just wanted to connect and see if there was anything on the radar for dog park at all. And the reason why I'm asking is I know this has been brought up over the years, and we haven't really found a suitable space, but particularly this last year, we've seen a lot of residents with their dogs off leash, especially at one of the larger parks that Ricky was just talking about here in Sunset Ridge. And more recently, just seeing feedback from residents on Nextdoor saying that their dog was attacked by an off-leash dog using the field out at Follow Ridge. And then, the principal at Follow Ridge also sent out an email asking people, this is not a dog park, please do not bring your dogs onto the turf. They have signs posted now, but then, yeah. And then again, today there's another email from the principal saying, people are doing a great job cleaning up after their dogs, but now they're leaving their bags of dog feces next to, the entrance. So it just kind of reminded me that there might be a bigger need than maybe is being brought to our attention. And I just didn't know if that was something on the radar of the city, or if this is a better question I could ask the Parks Board.
It's been on the radar for years, and we chased down, no pun intended, the best couple leads that we thought we had of land from both a zoning perspective and an availability perspective. But whoever controls it around the railroad just kind of shot that down, which is very disappointing. As you know, we don't have a lot of other opportunities. If we wanted to do a dog park, I'd like to see it at least half an acre big. And of course, any park you do is going to require parking. Most people don't walk their dogs to the dog park, they drive them there. So then we're talking, okay, how much is parking space too? We are tapped out. I can guarantee you this, I promise you this. When the city grows, UGB, a dog park is going to be included, absolutely. But I've really scratched my head to think about where we could have one officially. Where I go for physical therapy for my hip, there's a business right next to it. And this is over in Rinco. It's sort of an unofficially sanctioned dog park, so much as the business said, come here and use this as a dog park. It's got a dog poop station, everything. Everyone seems to respect the property well. And I've even thought so far there, is there a business owner we could find that would be fine with something like that approach? It doesn't necessarily need to be a city park. It's just an area where people are okay with having their dogs there, and they'll be respectful enough to clean it up. So I've thought about that, and I've talked to Public Works. If you think of areas around town when you're driving around, let's maybe workshop those ideas. So just trying to be creative, just because from a land perspective, it's tough, as you know.
Yeah, my neighbor suggested that we get that property next to the archery place and that dilapidated house and use it as a dog park.
We want very good fencing, knowing how close that is to the freeway.
Yeah.
I'll say
Next to
that.
McDonald's would be a good spot too, because all that parking.
Yeah, yeah. So if Charlie's no longer the president of Jewett Camera, he's a dog guy and they produce the bags. And I thought about asking him, is there any part of your property, but yeah, I am not sure. We have a little bit of industrial area on the east side of town, a little bit on the southwest of town that are just fields right now. It could have potential, you throw up some temporary fencing. But I am thinking about these things, and so is Blake. But if other folks have ideas, happy to pursue them.
Well, thank you. And I think I remember it's refreshing my memory now, and I remember that Dant Russell site that we were talking about a few months ago. And I remember at the time mentioning, obviously the grade is not correct, but that corner of where Commercial and Glencoe meet up right next to the pedestrian path where they've been storing the timber for the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I have no idea if that's even a possibility, but also just trying to think outside of the box. I don't know if it's possible that commercial area that Taylor Morrison owns in Sunset Ridge that's undeveloped, I think it's 1.24 acres. If that's a possibility, or, fencing off a part of that park right next to it that the city will be owning in 2024. So just trying to think of a couple other options.
Yeah. It could be an adjacent landowner too that says we're fine with having dogs here, in the city, if we provided some temporary fencing or something like that and find an arrangement. I'm willing to think outside the box, for that as well. Even the reservoir site, we could put up fencing there before it becomes a public works facility, but that would, and ideally that would be short term. That'd be short term. A little secret, I've heard that at the commercial area, the mixed use area at North and Main of Bryn Hill, I've heard talk that there could be a small dog park there, but I think it would be small. I don't think it would be that big, but I have heard the words dog park come out of their mouth before because they know that that's what residents want too. It's not even too late. In one of their later phases, they could turn one of those parks into a dog park. They kind of have they've gone through the land use for, I think, their first 2 or 3 parks, but they've got 2 more. But they're kind of at that threshold. One of them is going to be about half an acre, but that would be, if you're familiar with, again, this is over at Orenco, this actually is a dog park. What is that, Cherry Street? I think it's Cherry and Cornell. That's a dog park. It's gravel, year-round use. That's not that hard. That would not be hard to pull off like in Bryn Hill. And that's probably a third of an acre or something. That's not very big. So I don't know if that was helpful, but a couple things. So I'm willing to think outside the box too. So if you have ideas, just let me know, and I'm happy to try to chase them down.
Councilor Kendall?
No, it's okay. Enough said. Yeah, it's good ideas. Good thoughts.
Okay. Just real brief, the Veterans Park received another award. The ACEC, it's an architectural organization, so we received another award. So I picked that up and gave it to Andy. Andy has it at City Hall, so that was kind of cool. You may have heard the news that Oregon is lifting the indoor mask requirements no later than March 31st. So we'll be watching that and watching that closely. I know my State of the City is scheduled for March 30th. I'm toying with the idea of pushing it forward a couple of days, or, back a couple of days. So we'll see, but for now, it's March 30th in the evening and more deets to come. And that's it. I don't have anything really else to report. It's a new month, bunch of new meetings coming down the pipe. And oh yeah, thank you all for filling out the city manager evaluation. Everyone hopefully turned everything in to the city recorder on time. So the process will be that information will be compiled by the city attorney. The city attorney then will create a document with the compilation, and each one of you will get a copy of all of the feedback. So you'll have something to be able to refer to. The executive session will be on the 22nd, and I still need to talk to Andy just about the process and how that's going to work out. So more to come on that. But thank you for participating and getting your evals into Lori today. I appreciate that. So with that said, anyone have anything else they'd like to report? Councilor Sheldon.
The only thing if we're at the end of the end, the schedule, it looks like I traded places with Butch for this coming planning commission meeting. And it looks like I got put on the 14th or 4/13, which that is the only meeting of the month that I have a direct conflict with. So, I could trade it with another one of the nights. The third Wednesday is not a problem, but I'll see. I have a direct meeting at 7 o'clock on the 4th on every one of those nights. And it's pretty essential that I attend that meeting. So I have historically tried to hold just 2 of the planning commission spots throughout the year. And I have no problem swapping another spot for one of the other meetings. It's not held essentially at the same time concurrently. So I'll have to think about who I might want to trade with or see who might be available to trade for 4/13 planning commission, second Wednesday, 7 p.m.
So I worked at 4/13, but it's pretty late. I could probably, I've got a position now where I'm able to be a little more flexible with my schedule. So
I can take your if you can do that, I can take your 4/6 meeting for economic development.
Oh, okay, sure. I already have 3 planning commission meetings, but I guess they like me, so I'll be there a lot more.
And I would be, and if that doesn't work out with Councilor Phage, Councilor Sheldon, you can look at my schedule and see if I can, help with that as well. I only have 1 planning commission meeting for the year. So
That's just the only night that's tough for me. And I don't mind taking 2, but when I go to 3 on that particular night, that's a little more than I should probably take. It's 3. I mean, it doesn't sound like much, but.
well, you have a couple of us that are willing to take it for you. So whatever works.
Fair enough. All right.
Sounds good. All right. Anyone else? All right.
Really quick. Sorry, Mary Linehan. Not a huge deal, but Lori, for the Washington County Office of Community Development, I am taking over. I'm sorry, the Washington County Coordinating Committee. Sorry, I read the wrong. Oh my gosh, guys, I think I need more coffee. I read the wrong line. Okay. It was the Washington County Office of Community Development. I am attending for Mayor Linehan now. So you can just update that document whenever you get a chance.
then I will take care of that.
Thank you.
Good deal. All right. Anything else? All right, well, thank you all. Good to see you all. And we'll go ahead and close the city council meeting tonight at 8:25. Sleep well, everybody.
Roast.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.